So, thank you, and please once again give a warm welcome to this year's recipient of the Honorary Dragon Award, Luca Guadagnino. Now we will have a conversation about your career and your films, and we will talk about most of them. But I wanted to start by tracking back a little bit to when you were young, Luca. I saw this photograph in another magazine that made me very interested. Because you have described yourself as a lonely boy in your youth, but in this photograph you are surrounded by friends. How would you describe this person on this photograph? What did he like to do, and what did he dream
Two of them are still my very dear friends. One, I didn't go to his wedding because I told him that I was going to go to the second one, to the next one. He was offended. And a few years later, he called me saying I divorced. So I say I was right. But she was with him during the holiday, and I had a crush on him, so I was very, in between, literally, actually. This is Smyrna in Turkey. How do I describe it? I think you can see that I'm very alone in the picture, in a way, strangely. I don't know.
But how would you describe this person? What was in this young age? What was it? What were you dreaming of? What did you want to do with your life?
I've been always very practical. I wasn't very much. I mean, yes. I assume we all dream, or we all daydream. We all think of things we want to do in general, and this is more fitting for a filmmaker or an aspiring one because you have to dare to make a sort of leap that is a bit beyond the reach of an everyday life, to think of yourself being able to summon a number of people to help you visualize and creating a story through images. So I don't think I'm much changed in a way. I think I'm still the same person.
You had a really strong interest in films already as a young boy and a young man, and I know that you, as a teenager, drew imaginary posters where you wrote "Suspiria" by Luca Guadagnino.
I did. That's true. I have those things somewhere. Yes.
What was it that made you want to become a filmmaker?
I think must have been my dad's passion for cinema. He was really very much drawn by the medium, and we're talking about the generation that had cinema as the center of their imagination in a way. He was born in 1932, so he must have been a feverish young man in the 50s when cinema was really having a huge impact. And he always made, not in a didactic or pedantic way, but in a sort of indirect way, he gave me the feeling that movies were the real thing. They brought me to watch Lawrence of Arabia when I was 5, or I watched Apocalypse Now in a movie theater when I was 8. Those things make an impression.
It's young, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Apocalypse Now.
I don't. I think I'm past the age of having children. But if I had children, I wouldn't do that now. Which makes clear that you grow into a conservative person. But my dad was brilliant in making me see these films.
And I wanted to start talking about youth a little bit, and because youth is also very present in your work. Suspiria, for example, is about a teenager entering a dance company, and your acclaimed series, We Are Who We Are, is a coming-of-age story about a group of teenagers, and of course, Call Me By Your Name is about this young boy experiencing his first love. What is it with youth that interests you as a filmmaker?
Well, some of the most beautiful films are about youth. I mean, if you think of like Goodbye, South Goodbye by Ho Xiaoxian, it's such an incredible film about youth. And it's in a way as if the universe collapses in that film. In general, films that are ungraspable to me are the ones that makes me want to pursue the medium of filmmaking, the mystery of this greatness. Well, I don't know, it's difficult for me to rationalize the thematics that I go after, but definitely it must be about this age that it's about the transformation, and yet the illusion of somehow the belief that you master your life. You don't. That kind of titanic sense of self mixed with the restlessness that comes with youth is very interesting to me.
As you mentioned before in your little speech, you turned 50 last year.
August.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And judging from your films, I guess you know how to throw a good party. But
it was a very sad birthday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, terrible.
What happened?
Let's not go there, but I was like in a very sad pizzeria in Locarno.
Oh, sorry. Anyways, talking about, 50 is a big one, it's the big birthday,
yeah.
Right?
It's the aftermath of the death of my dad, so it's a very important birthday, because, I turned 50 the year after my dad passed away. And even if he was 88, I thought he was living forever. So it's a very strange passage.
And talking about aging and talking about youth, in this time of your life, do you miss being young yourself?
No. My most terrifying nightmare is to be like that character in Death in Venice, the novel, more than the movie. Yeah. I think the movie is not very good. That Haschenbach watches on the boat coming to the Lido, this old man wanting to be young, terrible.
Did you see this movie that came last year, this Swedish movie about this boy?
It was a very beautiful documentary. Yeah. I'm not sure I understand the trauma that the press wanted to relay about the great actor that made the movie with Visconti, of him being brought into these clubs in Cannes. There is something about that makes me feel uncomfortable because of the kind of like rewriting of history and
in what way?
It was the 70s.
Yeah.
You go in gay clubs with Visconti and his posse, right?
I wasn't there, so I don't know.
I'm talking being someone who never went into a gay club, so maybe half a time, and I left.
This film, Call Me By Your Name, is a film that has meant so much for so many people, and maybe especially young people, as we're talking about. There was even a book that was published where so many people wrote about a reaction. This was called Call Me By Your Name, How a Little Film Touched So Many Lives. Is audience response important for you?
It is, of course, and it isn't, in the sense that you cannot think of audience in a sort of abstract way when you do a movie. That's what Hollywood believes. They believe that they can predict an audience by driving the movie toward what they believe are the wishes of an audience, to the degree that they show movies to audiences before the movies are over. In a way, almost swearing to God in church, because they don't believe in themselves, because Hollywood taught us that the machinery of marketing and publicity is what creates the desire for movies. So what if you show a movie in the void, not having prepared the marketing and the publicity, how an audience can judge? I had one of the most terrifying experiences of my life by making a bigger splash. We're going to present an extended version of it in 2 days, where we had to show the movie by, in a way, a sort of indication of the studio that released the movie in America to an audience. And the movie was listed, the people that came to see the movie there were summoned by the idea that we're going to see a thriller like Gone Girl. So I don't know how many people saw Bigger Splash in this theater, but whoever saw the movie knows that that is not a point of reference. So we got, out of 100, we got, I think the score was like 9.
That's terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah.
One of the most miserable days of my life. But not because the audience didn't like the movie, but because I thought it was not the way to make an audience watch a movie and understand it. So again, I do believe in audiences, but I do believe in the individuals that makes the audiences. Speaking of this movie, after the movie started to be released throughout the world, I started to get, and I still get, letters from people. By the way, I don't understand how they got to know my address, but still.
Everything is online.
But I received so many beautiful letters, a lot of letters from people of all ages that were referring to their lives and the way these movies sparkled a sort of intense reckoning to what they lost or what they couldn't get or what they got, which was great.
Your debut feature came in 1999, and this is an experimental film about this Italian film crew going to London, and in the leading role we see Tilda Swinton, and it's quite impressive how you managed to cast such already then a big star in your first film. And I know that you were in contact already several years before the shooting. Can you tell me about your first meeting with Tilda Swinton?
I met her in Palazzo delle Esposizioni in Rome. She was there because there was a season of cinema, British cinema, that avant-gardist. And she was there, I think it was after the death of the great Derek Jarman. And I introduced myself in a broken English, and she was like very nice, and as always, because Tilda is one of those very rare people who are very curious and open to the world in a very open way. Like she's not like deciding what interests her based on any kind of hierarchies. She is interested. So she saw this guy, and she said, "Okay, I can't talk now, but if you call me in the hotel, I'll see you tomorrow, the day after tomorrow." And she managed to keep the promise. So we met and we spoke, and we became friends. And a few years later, we did this movie.
And since then, she has been one of your closest collaborators. After the protagonist, she has been part of short film Love Factory and features I Am Love, A Bigger Splash, and Suspiria. And she's also such an important part of these films, and I know that you have even called her your muse.
I said that she's not my muse.
Really?
Yes, because when they ask me if she's my muse, I say no, because the concept of muse is like really, for me, not interesting, because it's about someone, usually a man, who is taking inspiration from an object, a woman that is there to be the inspiration. But I don't think that's a relationship that I want to have. I want to have an active relationship, an exchange. So either we are mutually muse of one another, or better, we are collaborators and partners.
And how has, since this first film, The Protagonist, how has your relationship evolved during all those collaborations?
We are like the two guys, you know, in the Muppet Show, there are these two characters on the balcony looking up from above. Those are us, those two old guys over there. I was on the phone recently with Tilda. I love Tilda.
Last time we met, you were on this stage also, and you were introducing the Swedish premiere of the beautiful film A Bigger Splash. And this film took the title from a painting from American painter David Hockney.
British.
He's British.
He's British.
And his imagery is so American.
Part of it, yes. Now it's French. Part of his last work has been based on France. Sorry.
Right. But anyway, this image for me,
This super
it's
American. This is California.
super American, right?
Yeah.
And what was it in this painting that inspired you to use it as the title for your film?
Well, I mean, this is one of the greatest paintings of the second half of the 20th century, right? It's like so beautifully mysterious and formally compelling. And so for me, when I was approached to make the remake of Jacques Deray, La Piscine, where someone gets killed in a pool, I immediately thought of David Hockney, because in this picture that I always loved, there is everything. There is the action of the jump, and the absence of the jump, the mystery of the subject who's jumped, and what is the outcome of that jump. It's so beautiful. So I thought this was much more inspiring than Jacques Deray movie for me, to do a remake of that.
Wonderful. I think you work a lot with themes like desire, sensualism, and sexuality in your films, and I don't know any other filmmaker, to be honest, who can do this in the same way as you. And watching your films, you really feel the sensuality of this world, as in A Bigger Splash. Is it important for you that your films are sensual?
It's a tricky question, because Twitter troll based on my answer can make me look like a pervert. But how can I answer in a candid way without falling into the trap? Listen, we are made of flesh and blood and bones, and what is more fascinating than the human beings interacting with all their contradictions and failures, and aims and wishes and bodily contact, or the impossibility of such? Nothing for me. I would love to make films about animals, and maybe I will do one time, but I'm still interested in the human interactions. And if you go to there, sensuality is like a foundational thing. We are bathed, like really soaked into a culture of pornography, and there is a sense of like fear and like terror of sexuality. We are always chasing a definition of self, an identity definition, and yet there is not a relaxed attitude toward the actual act of sensuality. So that's what I try to look toward.
I wanted to ask you about this quote from Klaus Mann that you have mentioned sometime. It is, "There is only one face you love. It is always the same." I think it's a beautiful quote. And
it's a great book by Klaus Mann. It's his diaries. It's his autobiography. It's such a beautiful book.
And for you in this place, I read you mentioning this quote. You said that your face is the face of Jeff Bridges.
It's true.
So is it still true for you? Is the face you love still the same?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm constantly attracted to a certain kind of features. Yeah.
And why?
It's maddening, because it's like a curse. You can't escape that face.
And where does it come from?
I don't know. I fiercely rejected the idea of going to a psychoanalyst, being a great reader of psychoanalysis, because I like to be kind of tentative and not knowing until down the end of things. So I have these very strange dreams that I try to interpret. I don't know if I succeed. But.
On this Saturday, there will be a very special event here in Göteborg Film Festival. It will be the first time you screen a longer version of this film, A Bigger Splash, and you decided to call this film An Even Bigger Splash.
Well, because, first of all, I am not into the game of director's cut.
No.
That's like poor man idea of cinema. I hate it, actually. I'm more interested in the redux thing, Apocalypse Now redux.
What is the difference?
That you may think that you may want to try new things on something you already did, like a text is opened again, In this case, it's neither one nor the other. First of all, to be here, it's such an incredible honor to me, and it's something that I was looking forward since many months. So I thought it was interesting. It was nice to bring some flowers to the festival, or a bottle of wine. And my bottle of wine or my flowers came in my mind and my editor mind, Walter Fasano, into the shape of this version of the movie that was, through the process of making it, something that we were very surprised by, that we really loved. But we also thought, speaking of impossibility, that was just for us. That we had to find the movie to bring out to the world, but that beauty was something that was just for us. And now I thought, why not? Let's share with our friends in Göteborg.
We were very grateful, and I'm looking forward a lot to...
The title, An Even Bigger Splash.
Yeah, it's very funny.
I thought, do we call it a Bigger Splash Extended or whatever? And I was on the phone with Ron Halpern, who was he's the head of production at Studio Canal, who came in the first place with Olivier Courson, at the time the CEO of the company, who offered me to remake La Piscine. And Ron and I were very good friends, and he's a wonderful person. And I called him and I said, I'd like to do this with Göteborg. What do you think? Oh, yeah, please do it. And I said, I was thinking to call it Bigger Splash Extended. Said, no, An Even Bigger Splash. So the screenwriter, Dave Kajanek, suggested The Biggest Splash. But I thought it was that was the end of things. So maybe there will be an even more bigger splash.
That's when you have the honorary award in Venice, right?
Yeah.
Film production is in 3 phases. You used to say, pre-production, and then you shoot, and then
post-production.
You have the post-production where you are in the editing room, and you talking about this new cut, An Even Bigger Splash. You said that you think a lot about this early version of films, and that are maybe before you can give them to an audience, that are longer maybe, but I wanted to ask you: do you like this phase of filmmaking, to spend time in the editing room?
Yeah, very much. I think it's a beautiful phase. Actually, it's the best.
It's the best. Why?
Because pre-production is about programming, organization, and solving a lot of problems, and that I enjoy. Shooting is about running against time, basically, and the will of 100 people who are somehow there to make the movie with you, because the movie is a collective experience, but at the same time, it's a very individual one. It's a strange thing, because it's a very collective medium. You cannot make a movie alone, even though Yuri Ankarani, who is somewhere here, has made a movie alone, which is Beautiful Atlantide. Where is Yuri? Somewhere. He left, actually.
But I think he's on the balcony.
Okay, hi, Yuri. But a movie like Big Splash or Call Me by Name, you must make it with a group of people. But at the same time, the movie is in your mind, and you are in a way there. Your duty is to bring it to life. So you go against. You're helped, but also you're slowed down. And so it becomes very oppressive, at least for me. I don't have the mystique of the set. It's uncomfortable, and no.
Do you feel alone when you shoot?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. And how do you deal with that?
I accepted that I have a miserable life. It's true.
And then in the editing room, you feel a bit
I feel
better?
very happy.
Yeah.
Because it's with the editor, and you are in the quiet and you control everything. So you can change the course of something. You can, like I'm a formalist, I think. I like the craft. So when you put things together, it's beautiful to see how it works. One of the processes that I love the most is working on main and end titles.
Oh, really?
The graphics I love, because it's very, very formal and it's very much about the craft.
A Bigger Splash could be described, as you said, as a loose remake of La Piscine. And you have also made a remake of Suspiria by Dario Argento. And in the newspapers, I read that you have an upcoming remake of Brideshead Revisited. And
it's not happening. Full disclosure, no.
Okay, never mind. And anyways, many acclaimed filmmakers like you, they kind of look down on remakes, and this is a film culture with no fantasy when you have to remake other films. Why do you do so many remakes?
Well, that is some kind. I respect that assumption, but at the same time, I'm contentious of that assumption, because I do not believe that. Like after 1,000 Nights and One Night, all stories have been told. And yet we want to hear stories, and we want to, and it's how we hear the stories that makes us enchanted. So why we love to go to theater to watch yet another Ubuhua or another Hamlet or another Godot? Why? Because that's something that in that paradigm there is a sort of universality that we want to connect, and yet that universality changes through times and perspective and point of view. Same for other mediums. So I don't understand why you cannot apply the same perspective to cinema. Why making a film is about the originality of the story. I taught myself never to wait for the story to let me understand the movie. Actually, I always wanted to know everything about the story before going to see a movie. For instance, I knew everything about The Usual Suspects, that very bad movie by Bryan Singer, before watching it. I didn't care that Kaiser Sosa, I knew who he was. I needed to see how the guy made the movie, what was his perspective. It was lame. So I just don't understand it. I think it's like a bit lazy to think that the story and the originality of the story makes the movie. Like this year, there is a beautiful Macbeth by Joel Cohen, one of the best. And two of the best films that I saw this year, three, are films that are about already told stories. One is from Chekhov, Drive My Car by Ryusuke Hamaguchi. The other one is West Side Story, which is a remake of a musical on screen and a musical on theater that has been repeated many times. Beautiful Spielberg movie. And Macbeth. So I just don't get it. It's about the point of view. It's about the anxieties that you can be unleash in your perspective on something that has been told. In this case, it's about, for me at least, reconciling the impact that Dario Argento movie had on this teenager that I was when I saw it, so strong. When one thing that I don't miss of me young is this feverish absolutist idea that my thoughts were the best thought. So when you watch a movie, that's fantastic, it's a masterpiece. And I thought that for many films, including Suspiria by Dario Argento. And then I had a very beautiful conversation with Bernardo Bertolucci, who told me, like, why you like that movie? and I asked him, why you don't? So the way he answered was beautiful, but I can't talk for it. Bernardo is not here, so. But the reconciliation between my passion for that movie, which was a very adolescent passion, for a movie that was all about impressions, right? It was a very sensorial film. It was very much about how you, the viewer, were assaulted by first-degree signs, the colors, the violence, the music, the screams, and how he was quite literal. Suspiria was all about size in the movie. And how that kind of like frothy, enchanting superficiality was somehow covering something that was there but wasn't there. For instance, the fact that that movie was shot in Germany in the 70s during the lead year, the anni di piombo, the terrorism years that was storming Europe at the time. So I started to think, like, how do I make something about a movie that, in a way, let me explore what Dario Argento left off the door, but was there in a strange way, and what the movie by Dario Argento, how he impacted me. So it's very personal, to give a short answer. It's a very personal movie. It's probably my most personal movie, apart from the last one I just did, probably. It's not a sort of like endeavor in stealing other people's ideas and revamping for new audiences. It was a disaster commercially, by the way.
It was, yeah.
A complete disaster, like a bleak disaster.
But it's a beautiful
But
film.
I'm happy because I always, like when I was young, I was reading these books called Castoro Cinema, with collections of monographies on filmmakers.
Yeah.
And you read the story of these filmmakers, and always there are failures, triumphs and failures. So I'm happy that at least I'm facing my disasters now.
Are you happy, really?
Yes.
Wow. You mentioned...
But I think the movie is very good.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And Dakota is fantastic.
This photo is fantastic.
Alessio Bolzoni took the photo.
I see. It's incredible. You mentioned Bernardo Bertolucci,
Yeah.
and here's the two of you. I know he has been important for you, and I heard he was the first person outside the crew that saw Call Me By Your Name,
Yes.
for example. And he said something interesting about you. He said that, like many directors, they use reality as a basis. But something he thought he had in common with you as a filmmaker is that both of you use cinema and film history as a basis. And he said, for Luca, reality is cinema. Was he right?
Completely. But it's interesting because that interview, I didn't know he was doing it. He was very generous. That is about the man. They called him because Call Me By Your Name was going into the award season, and he gave this beautiful interview that was very touching to me, and he made me understand that. Then afterwards, a great critic called Roberto Silvestri wrote a review on Suspiria, and he said something that I didn't realize, that in a way my movies are like critical essays on films that I loved, which is true possibly. Yeah, I miss Bernardo, it's so beautiful. That was the last time I saw him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Do you feel a strong connection to him as an artist, but also as a human, of course?
Yes. It's very disappointing to meet the people that you grew into love. But I met two people that I so deeply loved for all my life. One was Jonathan Demme, and one was Bernardo. And with Bernardo, we were friends, and they were a very fantastic person as well, then great filmmakers. So I'm glad at least I wasn't disappointed by them.
So what did he mean for you as a filmmaker and as a mentor or something?
He wasn't a mentor of me, no. I think he was. I remember when I was young, and I was, and Bernardo was like the stuff of legend. He was like before 45 when he won 9 Oscars for The Last Emperor, and he had already made Conformist and Spider Strategy, and he already done Last Tango in Paris and Novecento. Already like legend, like such incredible career. And I remember I was watching these interviews to him and these documentaries about him in TV, and I thought of myself, I wish I could have that kind of way of being a filmmaker, not in the way he makes his own movie, but in the way he embodies. He, for me, has always embodied what a director is in the best sense.
And what is that?
An endless fascination for the other and capacity of telling stories, not just visually, but like the way they talk, and the great passion for cinema and knowledge of cinema. And he was his gaze was very piercing. He always repeated, "I'm a voyeur, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a voyeur." And I feel like a lot of the idea of cinema being a visual language and the filmmaker to be kind of like a sort of in the flesh camera has been missing a lot. Films are like now deprived of the idea of actual vision.
Love, this is a big subject in your films. Call Me By Your Name is one of the best and most honest love stories I've ever seen, actually. And your breakthrough film was even called I Am Love, Io Sono Amore. And it seems like in your films, love is always...
Not many people realize that I Am Love is a complete and total homage to Jonathan Demme.
No.
Because I Am Love is a verse from Umberto Giordano Andrea Chenier, the opera, that Tom Hanks listens in Philadelphia, and then he sings it to Denzel Washington, and he goes like, I am love, and he knows that he's going to die. So this title is an homage to Jonathan.
I didn't know also. Anyways...
And Emma Recchi, played by Tilda, realizes that she cannot stop what she's feeling for this young man watching Philadelphia on TV with the husband beside her bed.
In this situation, and as in many other situations in your films, love is very present, but it's also surrounded with like difficulties, both internal and external. And what do you think about the possibility for love in our society today?
I learned the bitter truth that in a way love as the possibility of recognizing the other in his, hers, theirs, complete otherness kind of fails and makes a sort of pullback. Yeah. And yet this movie I made that I cannot talk about is a reflection on the ultimate impossibility of love. Bones and all I'm talking.
Yes. I'm looking at you now, and you are very stylish, and you look very good. And also, your films are not only stylish as they are formally very good cinema, but also the characters are often very, very stylish. And you yourself, you have even designed a print for this luxury fashion house, Fendi. And at the Venice Film Festival a few years back, I saw this film Salvatore, Shoemaker of Dreams, where you made this documentary about this designer, Salvatore Ferragamo. And you also made this short film where you presented the spring collection 2021 for Salvatore Ferragamo. How important is style to you in filmmaking and in dressing up?
I think I can wear many hats. Not as many as I wish, but many. I wear the hat of the director of films, I wear the hat of the filmmaker, the producer, the documentarist, and also sometimes of the one who works mostly with fashion in advertisement. I think they're not the same jobs, and I'm not in the same position when I do these different endeavors. And so I'm not sure those can be put on the same shelf. In general, when you think of cinema and you think of style, then I would quote someone saying, I would put my hand to the gun, because I hate style.
You hate
I
style?
believe in form, not in style.
What's the difference?
Well, style is about the creation of an image that has to be impressive per se. Form is about how you create an object, the movie, around an exploration of the space and what's in the space and in the frame and form. Robert Bresson always said, don't look for the beautiful image, look for the juxtaposition between two images and what's the sense made out of that juxtaposition. So for me, style cannot be put in juxtaposition. Many filmmakers are stylistic, which I'm not very much keen. About my sense of style, I don't know. I'm curious, and so I like to play sometimes.
But Robert Bresson made this black and white movie about a donkey, and you make these beautiful films with the people are very well dressed and beautiful, and there is a difference between those, no?
I didn't make the movie about beautiful people with beautiful clothes. Every story called for what was the necessity of it, right? Like, it depends on the story. Like, if you talk about...
I'm talking about, for example, I Am Love.
Well, I Am Love is about... I Am Love is about the necessity of freedom from that oppression that a woman feels. Yes. So she's oppressed by the way in which she has to be dressed to be that woman. It's not about beautiful people dressed in beautiful manners. It's about what that clothes means. It's a weapon.
Yeah, of course, I didn't mean that it was only. It sounded very stupid when I said that, maybe, but still, I think you said somewhere that you hated beauty, and that's kind of surprised me because your films are still so filled with all the small and big beauties of life.
Beautification is a process of the commerce.
Yeah.
So that I'm not very interested in that. But I don't know. I mean, what can I do if people think that what I do is beautiful, or they are beautiful images? I don't know what to say. But
you are not looking. You don't want to create beautiful images.
No. No, I hope that I will convince people that that's not what I want to do.
Yeah. But do you see like a contradiction between a beautiful image and a meaningful image? Or?
I like the idea of a beautiful film being a medium that deals with editing and the invisible, which brings to us a meaningful image eventually. That's what I'd like to achieve, maybe one day.
You don't think you have already?
No.
Talking about future achievements, reading the newspapers, there are so many projects attached to your name. Everyone is now...
And none of these announcements I wanted them to be out.
Really?
Yeah.
I understand, because, me, I feel very stressed for you when I read about it, because there is the...
Don't go there, because it stressed me too.
Yeah, okay. I have on my list, I think, 7 projects, and now we had dinner while you just before now, and then you talked to me about 2 others. Can you handle this?
Can I?
Can you handle all these projects?
I multitask.
Yes. Because just the other week...
The truth of the matter is that when I did, in between the protagonists and Mundo Civilizado, and then Melissa P, and then I Am Love, it took like many leaps of time. And then after I Am Love, everybody was saying, oh, very good, we love you, let's work. It took me from I Am Love shooting to biggest splash shooting 6-7 years to make another movie. So that was a very taxing toll for me to grow through, waiting. I hate the wait. I'm restless.
Why did it take so long? Because I Am Love was very successful.
Because I loved Bigger Splash, the script, and I wanted to make it, and it was difficult to put it together. Because I learned that in the kind of actors I wanted to work, they weren't generous enough to accept to play in a 4-character leading the movie. It has to be one lead. But it took time, and we managed, and we got it there, and I'm very happy with the cast and the movie, of course. But so I promised myself, never again. I'm never gonna be in a position of being driven by this kind of exhaustion of waiting. I'm not gonna wait. That's what I promised myself, not to wait. So to do.
So that's why I have 9 projects rolling. One of the last one announced was biopic on Audrey Hepburn.
That was a rushed thing that was out. The truth is that I'm working with wonderful Rooney Mara and Chelsea Barnard on something, but that's very much out in the middle of the water. We are not yet in terra firma.
Right. But how do you select your projects?
I like to think that I'm selected by the projects.
And it seems that
It's a mixture.
many projects are selecting you.
It's a mixture. It's like in between, like being selected by the project or continue to pursue the dreams I had when I was that guy you showed me at the beginning of the conversation. Because I have many things that I want to do that I thought I wanted to do then. So it's like keeping with the agenda I had when I was like 18, 19, 20, and at the same time being open to what can come forward.
Is it difficult to be open?
No, not for me. No. I like to be misplaced. Who knows me knows that I choose to do things that are eventually leading me in places that I'm not very comfortable. Because if you're comfortable, then you are not going to really be able to really fight for something meaningful to be on screen.
You have made films in Britain and in Germany and of course in Italy, and now it seems you are working more and more in the States. Is this a conscious decision, or is it just how it happened, or why is that?
I think the latter. The movie I made, Bones and All, with Taylor Russell and Timothy Chalamet and Mark Rylance, that I'm finishing now, was a project that the writer of Bigger Splash and Suspiria, Dave Kajanek, who wrote it, put onto my attention. And I said, it was such a beautiful script, and I was like, oh wow, why not? And it was set in the Midwest, in America. I really didn't thought of making a movie in the Midwest, first time.
And how's it been?
It's interesting because, like once you leave the big coastal cities, and you enter the country, you see, for me at least, the vastness of America, in its beauty and in its endearing beauty, like the way in which a filmmaker like Michael Cimino was able to grasp on screen, or William Wellman, or John Ford. And yet you see of these people, for instance, or Ida Lupino was a great singer of America. And you see as well that America is a place of really terrible contradictions. where the opulence and the powers are the greatest in the world, possibly, and yet the privacy and the abandonment of society is as severe as the riches. And yet you see in these people, when I met people that were so wonderful and so full of openness. It's a strange and beautiful country, America, and I hope that Bones and All tells that story parallel to the story that it tells.
Me, I'm looking forward so much to seeing this movie, Bones and All, your upcoming film, and I'm also, of course, looking forward to see an even bigger splash on Saturday. This conversation is about to end now, but before we end, I would like to ask if there's any questions from the audience. Yes, please.
During this conversation, and I'm paraphrasing, you mentioned that you feel nowadays the films are more and more defined with the idea of visual. Could you elaborate?
I would just repeat the questions. Can you elaborate on something that you said, that movies these days are more and more deprived of the visual?
Yes, because I feel like that the business is more about either the anxiety of not allowing the audience to think of what they're seeing, so to give them a sort of hectic and really impactful constant level of attention through editing and through visual effects that makes what you're seeing a sort of constant punch that doesn't really sit in you. You are driven through 2 hours and 40 minutes of like constant anxiety that eventually ends. Or it's filmed scripts. It's all about the delivery of informations through the dialogue being pronounced by actors acting, which is more television in a way, but still it's infecting cinema very much. Like the beauty of a visual language. You remember that movie, I think it's John Ford, A Quiet Man, when he grabs her, brings her, and kisses her, and then she goes away and brings her back. Like that dance, that is everything about love that you can see represented in a classic movie of the 50s. I don't see that very much. Maybe I'm grumpy, I don't know. What was the question?
Yes, please.
When you're casting for people, is there a certain quality that you look for, and is that quality different in older people and in younger people?
The question is, when you are casting people, are there any specific qualities that you are looking for, and is it different what you're looking for when you cast for younger people or older people?
I mean, there are many levels of casting. There is the lead guy or girl or date you cast, or there is the smaller role, or there is the featured extra. So it's sometimes I like to cast the people who does the job that the character does. Often, sometimes you choose someone to work with someone because you have seen the work they did before and you admire it. I always want to cast people out of meeting them and understanding, in a way, the commitment to make something that invests a lot of themselves into the project, not just the actual act of acting. Yeah. I don't think there is a difference between older and younger people. Younger people are sometimes more surprising, to be honest. Was the gentleman over there?
Yes, I also have a question about casting for this film, Call Me By Your Name. We all know where Timothy went after this, and I don't think we see the end of his career trajectory yet, but I know that many agree with me that the character of Elio's father, played by Michael
Stuhlbarg.
is such a beautiful portrait. And I was just wondering about the monologue that he has in the end,
Shall I
sorry.
just repeat the
Yeah,
question?
yeah.
The question is about the monologue of the father in the end of Call Me By Your Name when he's talking to Elio. And the question is about how about when you casted the father in this movie, and if you have any special memories from shooting this scene?
The movie was shot mostly in sequence, so we were 3 days away from wrapping the movie when we shot that scene, and it has been a beautiful process shooting that movie. People were happy to be there, and so they were all sad they were going to leave soon. So the atmosphere was very magic in that moment. Well, we made a little rehearsal, and it was so perfect what Michael and Timothy did that I tried to be as unobtrusive as possible as a filmmaker. So it was very simple. It was very quick. Michael is wonderful. Michael is the narrator in Salvatore, and Michael is also he plays an amazing role in Bones and All. So he's a very dear friend, and he's a great artist that I'm very happy that I met in my life.
Talking about this scene, there's something I have to ask you also, because reading the analysis about this movie, Call Me By Your Name, and especially this scene, it seems to be there are two different schools on how to interpret the scene where the father is giving this talk to his son, and sharing that he has had the same experience as his son seems to have gone through during summer. It seems like half of the people are thinking about that he's talking about falling in love and engaging so strongly with another person. And it seems that the other half of people talking about this is saying that the father is talking about that he comes out as gay in front of for his son in this moment. For you, which one of those interpretations is the truth?
I love everyone's interpretation of that scene or anything, and I think I am the only person in the world who cannot take a stand. I can't say what I think. What I can tell you is that I believe that what we say and what we do is always more than one thing.
This is a beautiful scene for sure, and it's also a scene that will stay with many of us, I think, for through our lives. I think we have time for one last question. Yes, please.
I was just wondering, if you were to give one piece of advice for the future generation of filmmakers who want to make movies like you, what would that be?
The question is if you would give one advice for future filmmakers who want to make movies the way you do, what would that advice be?
I said it before, when I don't know how old are you, but you must be in your 20s, right?
Yeah, I'm turning 20 this year.
You're 20?
I'm turning 20 this year.
Okay, you're very young. So when I was 20, it was 30 years ago. 30 years ago was in
1992.
1992. And already cinema was considered dead. So given the shift that has been brought to our experience as moviegoers, particularly after the advent of the streamers, and the habit of watching movies that changed dramatically because of the pandemic, one can argue that there is not going to be such a thing as the cinema as we know it so far for generations like yours to act it out. And yet, you must consider that it's not true. That if you feel you have a voice and you have the ambition of making your voice be, and you have the capacity of seduction to convince other people to help you bringing that idea to life, or you have the conviction of working so hard to do it by yourself, and still yet you'll need other people's help, because even if you shoot by yourself, you'll have a subject to represent. And if you're a visionary who are really believing that what you do should transform somehow even one person in the world, I think you're going to make it. You have also advantage. The medium, like the actual tools, are much more easy than when I was your age. Because in 1992, digital was not very interesting. It wasn't digital, it was like almost digital. It was video, but was not very good. So you could not compete with a broadcastable or screenable image. You had to try to shoot in film, but the access to a camera, 35mm camera, 16mm camera, was impossible for a 20-year-old person, because it brought with it the need of the tools, the film, the lab, the crew. Impossible. And yet I did it. But now, if you have, let's say you have a Canon camera that you can buy for a couple of thousands after having worked a summer someplace, that camera can make you shoot. Or you can shoot with your iPhone. Coppola made this kind of prophecy, saying one day there will be a girl of 5-year-old that will make the most beautiful film with her phone. He said that in the 80s. Speaking of geniuses. And so the medium is not an issue, right? Let's say that you can film. You have something that you can use to film. So then what is the issue? The issue is what you want to say. And how. I would say how you want to say it is more important than what you want to say it. And do you want to say something because you feel compelled to adhere to a trend? Or do you want to say something because you feel that, in a way, your imagery is churning ideas that are the sum of things that you have been exposed throughout your young life? Think about that. Definitely do not try to adhere to a aesthetic or thematic thing that is the paradigm of the contemporarity, because it will change soon. What's your name? Good luck.
That was a beautiful advice. And now, I'd just like to once again thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Janus.
Please give a warm applause for Luca Guadagnino.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Beautiful. They made it to fit.
It's good.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.